The Alderney Land Use Plan 2017 claims to set out a vision for the future with guiding principles and defines the island's aims and goals through ongoing plan outputs. In this, the second of 3 informal interviews, the island's planning officer, John Young, discusses the ways in which the new land use plan will impact on the island's infrastructure and its community. John, let's start by considering major projects that are in the designated areas but are felt to be in the public interest.
Well, all along Arup felt that we lacked a policy which allowed the really big and important things that the island needs to sustain itself for the future. This is normal in other jurisdictions. For example, in Jersey, there was a policy allowing a desalination plant in a beautiful area. That's an example of the sort of projects that... And so we postulated a policy, but that policy will require not just a change in the land use plan, it will require a change in the law. And that policy sets out a proposal that says where you've got such a project, which is in the overriding public interest, that the states can allow that project to be considered by the planning system. But as I said, that needs a law change, and there's further consideration to be given to that.
Does the report contain any proposals regarding Alderney Airport?
Yes, we know the work that's been done concurrently by Policy and Finance. We've taken account of that in the land use plan, and so therefore the land would be required for an extension at the end of the runway is included or is safeguarded in the plan as a long-term proposal. Equally, the land to the north of the existing terminals also needs to be safeguarded for changes which possibly be made for new terminal buildings and so on. So that is a clear proposal.
I believe the land use plan also makes specific proposals regarding Alderney Railway.
Yes, this was a very pleasant surprise. I mean, what Arup pointed out, that the railway is unique in the Channel Islands, and it has got a really important history and keep up. And they pointed out that there ought to be policies in place that both protect its existing infrastructure, the station, the track, and the buildings they use, and also recognising that if the possibility comes, there ought to be policies to enhance that. So, for example, extending the track through the cutting and through, well, the track's already there. It's about bringing it into reuse and so on. And so the plan is very positive towards protecting and enhancing the future of the Alderney Railway, which is important for Alderney's tourism.
Does the plan contain any proposals for waste management and recycling?
Yes, we had quite a number of submissions from the States Works Department where at the moment we do have fairly fragmented waste management operations, and there is an aspiration in the plan for a single consolidated site. It's recognised that to get to that point we need to have what they describe as meanwhile uses, I would call interim uses in some places, but they should be temporary, and where they're permitted there will be time conditions, with the object having a long-term recycling base. Now, again, that requires some planning work in the future, but the plan sets out policies to enable it. In addition to that, there is the prospect as well of States Works being able to be part of, for example, Fort Gronay and so on, because at the moment they are sited in the Buttes area, which is obviously a major opportunity area where the plan wants to see community use and community facilities and so on. So there's that element which is included in the plan, yes.
Have you considered using waste heat from the power station?
Yes, we had a very innovatory proposal from the Alderney Electricity, whereby their current situation is that there is waste heat from the power station as a byproduct of our own generation activities, and of course that would be available to serve all premises in the Bray opportunity area, right out as far as the Minho and so on. As well as that, there is a proposal from Alderney Electricity to use part of the Upper Glassy for generating solar power. And if that can be done in a way which doesn't damage the Gronay building, I think there is a great potential. The plan makes provision for that also.
How about health and education?
Well, I think it's axiomatic that those things override everything. They have to be provided for. In the first phase of the land use plan, it was identified the land next to the Minho needs to be protected for and reserved for use of health-related development. And similarly, what the plan recognises that although St Anne's School at the moment, the number of children are well below its capacity, but looking to the future, there will be a need potentially as it grows. There could be more need for open space and so on. And so the plan identifies those areas that should be earmarked and protected for the future of St Anne's School.
Are you planning to protect open spaces and other community facilities?
Well, again, these are almost something which I think people have perhaps taken for granted because of the open nature of land in Alderney that we all enjoy. But nonetheless, I think it's important that there is both the designation of those areas of land as protected open space for recreation and community use, particularly children's play space, where of course there is a need to ensure that there's more of that. The plan at the present doesn't actually earmark particular sites for that, but nonetheless provides policies that enable those judgments as those opportunities arise and the need arises to be taken. And of course it also allows for where we have recreational use for a kind of modest degree of associated development to help that function to operate properly.
Finally, please summarise the plan's proposals for housing here in Alderney.
Well, first of all, there is no change to the long-standing policy that there will be no new dwellings created or permitted in the designated area. That seems to be fundamentally behind a decision in 1968 taken by all members at the time to protect Alderney's green zone, and that's worked very successfully. The good news is all the future housing needs we believe can be accommodated within the existing building area by more efficient use of that available land, and there is the capacity for about 140 dwelling units in the next 5 years there. Some of that will be subdivision. There's an important point about the mix. We do need housing for older residents, and it's important that's in the right place. So the policies in there will encourage, for example, those sort of units to go in the town area where there is the facilities for people with perhaps less mobility and independence than they previously had. So I think there's some very comprehensive policies for housing in Alderney. There is a very new proposal which is defined as a reserve policy. If it becomes necessary and circumstances that warrant it, it's proposed that there will be a planning condition placed on new dwelling units, which means at least a minimum occupancy of 180 days a year. That's a very new provision. It's known as, I think in the UK, as the St Ives provision, and it's there as a precaution to, if ever the situation arose that all of our housing land became used up for second home, which with low occupancy, it's there to deal with that situation if it arises.
The Land Use Plan is open for public consultation until the 14th of August 2017. Representations and objections to the plan, in writing or email, will be submitted to the Planning Inspector. Subsequently, a planning inquiry will be held here in Alderney from the 4th to the 20th of September, after which time Mr Michael Hurley, an independent planning inspector, will submit his report to the BDCC. Finally, the States will need to approve the Alderney Land Use Plan 2017 in its current or modified form.